Hello and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are actually talking about on Monday, the 22nd of September. I'm Holly Wainwright and I am back from a sick bed where I have been laid up with the flu for a little while, dying to be back talking to you.
I'm Jessie Stevens. I'm very excited that Holly is back and Mia has officially gone on holidays.
She has. She's actually left the country.
She did tell me she downloaded the entire 3 seasons of The Summer I Turned Pretty to watch on the plane, so prepare for that when she returns.
It will fly by.
I should probably introduce myself. Hello, I'm Claire Murphy. You can usually hear me on Mamamia's twice daily news podcast, The Quickie, and on Well for all your women's health information and funny and gross stuff that our bodies do.
Funny and gross stuff. My body's been doing some very funny and gross stuff lately, Murphy. We'll talk offline about that later.
Sure.
Anyway, here's what's made our agenda for today.
So Jimmy Kimmel's late night show was pulled off the air last week. There's been a lot of conversation around it politically, morally, constitutionally, but what does that all mean? Does it matter and should we be freaking out?
I don't want to alarm you out louders, but we know that you always have a little cry on your birthday. And we know why you do.
And the wife guy is back, but this time without his wife. I'm going to explain one of the most ambitious comebacks in all of internet history.
But first, Jessie.
In case you missed it, this morning, Australian time, a memorial service was held for conservative activist Charlie Kirk at a stadium in Phoenix, Arizona. An estimated 200,000 people gathered in and around the stadium, and all the speakers were shielded by bulletproof glass on the stage, which is something we haven't seen before. Attendees were also encouraged to wear red, white or blue to the service. Speakers included Robert F. Kennedy, Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica Kirk, Donald Trump Jr., who was very close to Kirk, and, of course, President Donald Trump, who spoke last. Erica Kirk declared that she had forgiven the man who allegedly killed her husband, and her address had this real focus on love, which was in stark contrast to Donald Trump's speech, which followed. The president said, "I hate my opponents and I don't want what's best for them." He referred to networks of radical left maniacs who were to blame for Kirk's murder. He also repeated the words fight, 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 which you might remember from after his attempted assassination last year. He also referred to Kirk as a martyr, a patriot. He is awarding Kirk posthumously with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian honour. Many speakers cited this battle between good and evil and said that there was this struggle going on. Donald Trump Jr. asked the crowd, will you surrender? Will you back down? Will you give up in fear? And look, the headline is that Kirk was used as a symbol for all that is great about America. I think even with the colours that people were encouraged to wear, it was about patriotism and this, you know, almost a suggestion of some sort of civil war that's going on in the US at the moment.
It's interesting though, because as you've said, that's not what Erica Kirk was talking about. And this seemed like the parts of it that I've watched this morning, and obviously we're recording, you know, at 11:30, it's sort of just finished. It was like a show. And there was a very distinct difference between Erica Kirk, who was very clearly incredibly emotional, incredibly devastated, incredibly gracious, you have to say, in saying what she said about her husband's alleged killer.
Moving.
I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love.
And then, as you've said, Jessie, there's that beautiful, gracious message that, you know, I wonder if people can actually hear. And then you had like Donald Trump Jr. treating it like a stand-up show. He was throwing out some jokes. He made some Kamala jokes, some Hillary jokes, you know, all the old hits from the MAGA right. Trump preaching how much he hates everybody. And it just seemed like such a stark contrast. Like I think so much of this conversation is between the very human loss of a person and then this huge existential war that seems to have been very much fanned by this assassination.
Which isn't about Kirk at all, really. Like there's something quite, and there's a lot to be said for the left and the way that they've discussed, the rhetoric that they've used, the vitriol that's come in the aftermath. But it reminded me that while the left has dehumanised Kirk, so has the right. Like they've used Kirk as a symbol, and they very much did. And when Trump got up, it was just he was at a rally. He was at a rally and he talked about 2020 and how that election was stolen from him and Joe Biden. And there are
he made some kind of policy announcement too in the middle of all of that apparently.
Exactly, some medical announcement. And there are reports that people left, which I found really interesting when he started to speak, because it did feel really disrespectful.
Do you know what's really crazy about looking at this memorial today is that until September 10, I had never even heard of Charlie Kirk.
Really?
I had no idea who he was, except in real vague passing. I'd seen videos on my social media feed of him doing those debates with people, but it was most often positioned from the person who was debating him rather than him and his debate. But now not only do I know who Charlie Kirk is, I watched that man die almost in real time, which was horrific to witness. And then not long after that, I was given conflicting stories as to who his alleged shooter was, his political allegiances, who he chose to spend his time with. This whole situation from the very get-go felt very dirty and awful, and we all have participated in it, whether it's from watching the videos, whether it's making a comment about Charlie Kirk or his rhetoric, whether it's about celebrating his death, which some have done, whether it's those right-wing factions who've now collectively got together to bring down anyone who even mentions Charlie Kirk's name, to the politicians who are speaking at these particular events, trying to muster up that same kind of energy that we heard for January 6. It all feels very performative. It all feels like everyone is in it for themselves, and it feels like this is where we absolutely expected to be at this point in time.
Well, it's very hard to be shocked by anything now, to be honest. I'd suggest that Erica Kirk doesn't seem like she's in it for herself. I mean, she did say in her speech about Charlie, she said that she's going to take on his work and she's going to become the CEO of Turning Point USA, and she's actually absolutely going to keep moving with that, which is deeply understandable given the kind of person Charlie Kirk was and the mission that she says their family shared. But it's just that juxtaposition between a very human grief and then this intense politicization. Anyway, what we're going to talk about next is kind of adjacent, right, Murphy?
Yeah, because obviously the fallout, as I mentioned, there's been a lot of collective movements coming together to stop any conversation about Charlie Kirk's murder from anyone who's considered vaguely left of centre. So obviously one of those big fallouts is Jimmy Kimmel.
He had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. Okay. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
Murphy, can I just jump in and ask you about Kimmel? Because if you're not massively conversant in American late night culture, we know that there are these big shows that have dominated, or they certainly used to, dominate American political discourse in the late nights. But I always get my Jimmys mixed up.
Yeah.
So there's Jimmy Fallon, who is a little bit more like... He always seems a bit more mischievous. He used to be on Saturday Night Live. Kimmel is the one who's hosted the Oscars a couple of times, right?
Correct.
And Trump has always kind of hated him. I remember live on stage at the Oscars, Trump was tweeting about him and he was reading out the quotes, right? And Kimmel's been a big force there for a long time too.
Yes. Also, after it was announced that Stephen Colbert, who's another one of these late night hosts, that his show was being cancelled in 2026, Trump put out on his social media that Kimmel would be next.
Yeah,
which
and
Indeed he is. So after those comments were made on Kimmel's show, conservative commentators came down really hard. One had said that he's painted all of the MAGA movement with the same brush, essentially calling all of them collectively murderers. Elon Musk then weighed in. He was at the memorial today, Elon Musk was. He called Kimmel disgusting. X then was lit up with conservative voices, and that echo chamber spread out far and wide across the internet. The ABC then received pressure from the Federal Communications Commission, which is a government department that oversees media in the US. The chairman warned the ABC that they would pull their broadcast license, and calling Kimmel's comments truly sick. Now, there are also major broadcast companies that take Jimmy Kimmel's show and broadcast it to stations across America. So they came together and said that they would pull Kimmel's show, and that advertisers were being targeted. Some employees were also receiving threatening messages. So they bowed to the pressure and ABC stood Kimmel down. There is, of course, a lot, which we do not have time to fully deconstruct here today, going on up and down that chain. So these big companies like the ABC, they need government approval for acquisitions because they're got many fingers in many pies, and they won't get that if they, for example, continue. If Trump is angry with them over Jimmy Kimmel.
It's also worth pointing out that when we say the ABC, we don't mean the Australian Broadcasting Corporation.
Yes.
Even though the Australian ABC says they've been getting a lot of complaints about this.
They have hundreds and hundreds, which they put up on their social media just yesterday, and they also put an email address for who to actually complain to.
They were like, this is not us, guys. This is not us. We did not do anything.
But, of course, the conversation here is now, how do the late night show hosts respond to this? Because are they under threat of also being kicked off the air if they make jokes about this situation?
Well, and also the conversation seems to have gone to, Jessie, this is the beginning of the end of free speech, right? Because when this happened on Thursday, my feeds were suddenly flooded by lots of well-known American leftist comedians. When I say leftist, I just mean, to be honest, until very recently, almost everybody in Hollywood was an outspoken leftist.
Yeah.
And so lots of people saying, it's happening. We said authoritarianism was coming. This is the first real sign of that. Is that where this conversation is now? Is it about the death of free speech, which is, let's be clear, something that the right side of politics, as in the MAGA side of politics, free speech was the thing that supposedly radicalized and evangelized the Elon Musks of the world, the Joe Rogans of the world, the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, who
Charlie
all
Kirk
said,
himself is a free speech advocate.
Of course. And they're like, but they're saying that it was the left that were trying to silence debate, and that's what pushed them to the Trump side. Is this the first step in authoritarianism?
To be clear, Trump campaigned on free speech. He talked in his inaugural address earlier this year. He said, after years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. They are his words months ago. And so I think everyone is going, hang on, this is absolute hypocrisy. It is a double standard. There are fractures within the party that are going, this is what we fought for. As you say, Holly, it is something that has been pinned on the left in terms of cancel culture and wokeism and, political correctness gone mad. But the thing about that, and I would argue, we've talked about cancel culture on this show, there are definitely instances where there's been overreach, but that's often self-censorship, a board, maybe trying to be really, really careful and not offend people. The difference here is that it's hard power, not soft power. That's why I think it feels so scary.
I spoke to John Barron about this in the Quickie, he said the big difference is these directives are coming from the president down, which has not been the case. It's normally like a public opinion or it's a business level decision, but this is very much coming from the White House itself.
This is coming and often it's within the interests of for example, they don't want to lose advertisers. This happens in Australia. Someone says something offensive, they don't want to lose advertisers. Yeah, that's a soft power that can be troubling. But this is a directive coming from within the White House, and that's why it feels like it feels as though you're living under a government who gets to decide what you can and cannot say. And the profound paradox in all of this is, of course, they're going, even at the memorial, look at this bastion of free speech who will look his opponents in the eye and speak to them. And now you're going, you can't disagree with what Kirk said, the man who got killed for saying things that, like, that's where it leads, because you say, I do not want that person to speak anymore. I do not think that person deserves a platform. It is where you go in terms of an authoritarian regime. This has played out throughout history. And I think that's why my first reaction upon seeing this story was, this is really scary shit.
It is scary shit. I think it comes from a basic place because, as has been widely reported, what Jimmy Kimmel said there was not that shocking, right? And also on the day of Charlie Kirk's assassination, Jimmy Kimmel, like most mainstream Democratic figures, said exactly what they should have said, which is, my heart goes out to his family. This is inexcusable. He did all of those things, right? What this is actually about is that President Trump hates to be mocked. Let's face it, most of us do, right? But from all the way back before he was seriously standing for politics, the Jimmy Kimmels of the world, in Trump's view, the people that he would broadly call the Hollywood elite, the leftist Hollywood elite, have taunted him, not taken him seriously, taken the piss out of him. Famously goes all the way back to President Obama at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in 2011, who stood up and roasted him. And he was in the room at the time. Trump, he was a guest of Newsweek. And Seth Meyers stood up and said, Donald Trump says he's going to run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke. And everybody just took the piss out of him. And many Trump insiders say that was the moment when Trump went, I'm coming for you lot. And look what's happened. He did. And he won. And he didn't need any of these guys who have been, let's be honest, trashing him for decades. He didn't need any of them to get him to power. He doesn't really need their approval, but he hates their derision. And he's been waiting for this. You know, he as Murphy said, Colbert is going off air. He said that Jimmy Kimmel was next. Now he says that Fallon's next, Seth Meyers is next. All these guys are going to go. It's interesting because their power is reduced in lots of ways since nobody watches network TV anymore. But they will all go, and as they lose their jobs from their networks, they will all go to YouTube, to podcast, to all the different tech platforms, and they will speak there. And whether or not they really have clout anymore, I think it's that classic thing in a way that what may lead to this authoritarianism is like a man's bruised ego. You know?
I think there's also some reports going around that people like Colbert and a bunch of others in the background are starting a rogue news network, which will, I'm guessing, be internet-based in some way, shape or form, which
is what lots of the right guys have done. It's what Tucker Carlson's done and this is where all these people are talking now.
Yeah, exactly right. So it looks like it might create a whole new network of sort of left-wing ideology there. But just before we stop talking about this, I want to be able to, do we need to check ourselves and just look at this from the other perspective for a minute? And do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I do, Claire. And I've been thinking about this because I don't think that free speech is unlimited. It never has been. It's the limits on free speech. I think that there are things that Jimmy Kimmel could have got up and said that are so offensive that actually maybe would have warranted a little bit of censorship. So if he had come up and incited violence, excused violence, yep, absolutely. I think that there would be a really important national conversation because there is a standard of speech that exists. But he didn't say any of those things. And my first response to this story was, oh, well, I'm going to look really closely at what Jimmy Kimmel said. Because some left-wing commentators have veered into that. And if that were on the other side, we would be just as horrified. But to me, it's the banality of what he said. His crime was being imprecise. Like what he said was actually factually wrong. It was early days. He didn't know it was wrong yet. And so that's something that, inaccuracy, you can definitely charge him with that. But inaccuracy doesn't get anyone else pulled off the air. And then some people said, well, the ratings were shit, so they were just looking for an excuse.
That's what Trump says.
But then you don't pull people off immediately for bad ratings. You say you wind them up.
I think you're right, Murphy, in lots of ways. And I think that one of the things about this is that when I looked at all the responses from the other late night guys, and they were all very clever, because these are very clever people, and they've got huge staffs of writing people who are also very clever people. And they are exactly, as I said before, the kind of people that Trump would dismiss as Hollywood elites. And they're thinking of the cleverest, funniest ways to go viral by mocking the president. I would suggest that one of the things we learned last year is that you can have every famous, powerful Hollywood person on your side, from Taylor Swift to Bad Bunny to every single Hollywood star to George Clooney, and you're still not going to win the election, because nobody likes being mocked and dismissed and taken the piss out of. And that goes for Donald Trump, but it also goes for Donald Trump's supporters.
Yeah, it does. But I would say that parody and comedy and sending things up in the world of comedy, the rules are that kind of nothing is untouchable. And so, of course, these shows were going to touch it in the same way, whether you were right or left, you were going to touch it. South Park.
Well, they didn't have an episode go live this week and last week, sorry, and they put it down to they left it too late and didn't get it finished.
30 years, and they always managed to get it finished. So,
I think that was a smart move on their part. Because obviously they've been all over the headlines lately for, I was just saying how Donald Trump doesn't like to be mocked. They have been mocking him on an extreme scandal. So those guys would have to be worried. And I think if they made a call to not go to air the week of Charlie Kirk's murder because they knew what they had was inflammatory, I would say that was probably a smart choice.
I think that's exactly what happened.
Not to defend censorship in any way. Jessie, Claire, do you cry on your birthdays?
Most years, yes.
Oh, okay. I need to know both these. I need to know more details about both these things. At what point on your birthday do you normally cry, Jessie Stevens?
Normally more than once, but I've identified, and I've identified the moment where I cry. And it's when I am doing something mundane. So I find myself mopping the floor, scraping a dish, putting on the dishwasher, and I think, it's my fucking birthday. Why am I doing this task? And I also get that feeling on Christmas.
So basically, a birthday should be a day off from boring activities.
It should
free pass.
Only be extraordinary.
Okay. Murphy, do you like birthdays or not like birthdays?
Oh, I love my birthday. I also share my birthday with the spookiest holiday of the year.
Oh, so Halloween. It's coming up.
Get to go trick-or-treating with my child, which has not always been my favourite thing to do, but now I've kind of come around to it. But I do not cry on my birthday. I've made it very clear to my family that I will not be doing any mundane work on that day, and that is purely up to them to do all of that shit and also wait on me hand and foot. My husband has been well trained to provide cups of teas in bed if it is a weekend. He's been very well trained to cook me dinner or take me somewhere. This has been well established in my household. Plus, I am the youngest child in my family by a long way. So there's a big gap between my brother and sister and I. So I have been spoiled.
Okay, so Murphy is the queen of the birthday boundaries. That's what we've just discovered now.
How about you, Holly?
I have been known to cry on my birthday, but the reason I'm asking you this is because we ran a piece on Mamamia this week, which a lot of women have related to, right? Which was about why women cry on their birthday, because apparently it's very common. Very common. And there are a number of reasons. But Beck Day in this piece, she wrote, for example, there was somebody who she spoke to who said the biggest fight she's ever had with her partner was over his failure to post a public display of birthday love on Instagram, even though the last time he'd posted was in 2016. So very reasonable things here. Some people said maybe it's just an echo of the day that you first entered the world, scrunched-faced and crying and trying to figure out all this shit.
It does feel overwhelming in the same way being born might.
Yes, exactly. And Counsellor Julie Sweet said the reason that a lot of women cry is because disappointment and conflicting emotions often present when the pressure to appear happy doesn't match inner feelings. So no matter what's going on in your life, maybe your relationship's falling apart, maybe you're sick, maybe your kid's being a shit, maybe your boss is being a shit, whatever's happening on your birthday, it's still happening, but you have to kind of pretend that it isn't, and that can be overwhelming. So she said, Julie Sweet, that this creates a double whammy of overwhelm and internalized blame, and we end up wondering why we're not happier, all the while berating ourselves for not feeling grateful enough. I know what that's like.
Yeah, and I wonder too if it's my expectations are unsaid because they are unacknowledged within myself. Like I couldn't, if I tried to journal what I wanted my birthday to look like, I don't necessarily have a vision or the words, but some part of me clearly has a standard for the day that is never realised.
Well, and it's more complicated for you because you share your birthday, you're a twin, right? So through your life, was it important for your family to like make a fuss of Jessie, make a fuss of Claire? And we also have the added thing, you and I, of being Christmas babies.
Yep.
So one of the things that
you got ripped off.
We do. One of the things that I often used to, I mean, not anymore, but I used to struggle with on my birthday when I was younger is I was like, nobody cares because everybody's focused on Christmas and I'm only going to get joint presents and nobody wants to celebrate and da-da-da-da-da. And there would be that kind of sulky la-la thing about it.
Which is all true. But I think that whether we want to admit it or not, we do build it up as like, even when we look at a calendar year, right? If you were going to put the first things in, you'd go, well, that's Christmas and that's my birthday. Like it exists in my head all year round. And the trick I have started to adopt is I must have a plan. And I resisted that for a while because I thought that plans inevitably bring with them expectations and I don't want to be disappointed.
Was there an expectation that someone else make those plans because it's your birthday?
Maybe I expect to wake up and just be taken through a day of joy. And that's never happened. Like my mum was always just pissed off because it was nearly Christmas. Like, So
your mum popped out like twins after twins. Like she had a lot on her plate.
Yeah, she did not care. And no, she didn't care about making it special for each of us. She was tired. So now I'm like, it's the existing in those moments of in between that I really, really don't like. And I've found that with Christmas too, that I wake up, I have this excitement that I kind of didn't even expect to have. I still have it. And you have a plan. And sometimes you'll go and do the plan, but then I don't like when the plan's done and I'm just at home and it's 6 o'clock on Christmas night. I feel sick because I'm just like, what? This is just like any other night? What? Am I meant to have leftovers? This is Christmas. Like, and I'm horrified by that.
This is the thing. So the experts say, and I'm going to get to your excellent birthday boundaries in a minute, Claire Murphy, because you have got the right idea. You'll be surprised to hear. The experts say that managing expectations is the absolute key to this, right? But also for the people around you to understand what's required of them. Now, there was a brilliant piece online about a man who's trying to opt out of his wife's unrealistic birthday expectations. He said they've been married for years and they've got kids, and she really wants a big, big, big fuss on the birthday. And he's worked out over the years that no matter what he does, it isn't enough. So one year he'd like planned her, she wanted to go skydiving, she wanted a picnic in a hot air balloon, whatever. And he did it all. And she still ended up in tears at the end of the day.
Oh my God. Okay.
And so he had written online and he'd said, I've decided to set a boundary that I'm just out of the birthday business because I can't win. And we just have a big fight every year. He said, so I told her calmly, and she responded with shrugged shoulders that she knew I'd changed my mind. He told her that he's not going to plan anything, he's not going to do anything, right? Her birthday is now 2 months away, he writes, and she's been coy, silly, persistent in hints that she's excited to see what I've got planned. And he said, I'm planning a nice dinner at home with our kids, and anything else you need to plan yourself. His wife now thinks that this is a strategy to hide the
reverse
big
psychology
reveal. So Murphy, what's going to happen to this poor man? And are we sometimes unrealistic in our birthday boundary demands?
Yeah, we are. And we're unrealistic about a lot of these things. We're unrealistic about what marriage looks like. We're unrealistic about our relationship with our boss. Like, we're unrealistic about so many things. And like, that could be for many reasons. Maybe your mum and dad had the most wonderful relationship in the world and dad spoiled mum and now you are ruined for every other man that comes after. Or like, maybe it's because you've watched too many rom-coms. I don't know, whatever it came from. But like, it's not that I have low expectations. It's just that I don't expect everyone to, I don't know, like stop their entire lives for one day. Like, I don't know. I want people to acknowledge that it is my birthday, buy me gifts of those people who are close to me. And, you know, I love my kid creates the most ridiculous artwork for my birthday, and I love that. So like, there's lots of things that I do expect. But if my husband was to get up and go, I have got an emergency at work, I can't do your birthday thing today, is that okay? I'd be like, yeah, cool. get on with my day. Like I'm not so let down by it at the end of it all.
Jessie, you're going to hate one of the suggestions that the expert had, because we've talked about this on the show before. Instead of making it your birthday day, make it a birthday week, because you spread your expectations out across the week.
Oh, I don't think so.
Do you think that's why people have started doing birthday weeks?
That's a good point. But then it's like it's a Monday morning and I'm indignant because Monday mornings aren't meant to happen during my birthday week. Like I have the pleasure of nearly never having to work on my birthday. Because
it's very often,
a few times.
Yeah, sometimes, but it's very often almost holidays, isn't it?
Yeah, which maybe puts more pressure on it. Like it was always also school holidays. So it was like the sitting around waiting for a fuss to be made was just always so unmet. It was Luca's birthday over the weekend and he was just like, not interested in doing it. And I kept trying to push something because I was like, you'll be disappointed. And we sat there.
Realistically, you'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
Jessie Stevens,
Well, he was fine. On Saturday night, we watched TV and ate Mexican. I was like, this is the saddest thing ever. And he was absolutely found it very joyful.
You need to have your rules. So as you've got Murphy, you're like, I expect these things to happen. I expect the people who live in my house to do these things. They're not extravagant things, but they're things that matter. And I'm the same. I'm like, whoever's birthday is in our house gets breakfast in bed, gets whatever they want for their birthday breakfast. So if it's one of the kids' birthdays and they want chocolate for breakfast on their birthday, they can have it.
Fabulous.
That's no problem. I expect to be able to be eating what I want for dinner that night, whether it's out or in.
Mm-hmm.
And I expect, as previously discussed, to not have to empty the dishwasher. Those are the only
Can
things.
I ask a question quickly? I keep saying to people around me, it's the big 35 this year. I want to do something special for my 35th.
I'm sorry, the what?
Okay.
No, this is good.
People have started to react like you, Claire, where they're like, 35 ain't a big birthday. And I'm like, guys, I think we should go away for my birthday. And they're like, 35 isn't a milestone birthday.
No, it's not. You get 18, you get 21, and then it's 10-year increments from that point on.
You're on trend. My brother, so he was 55 this year because we're ancient, and he had a massive party. He didn't have a massive party even for his 50th, but he had a massive party.
Why?
And apparently in Europe, the 5 years,
there we go. I'm European.
The mid-decade turn is becoming more and more popular as the one, because the zeros are so confronting.
They are. The zeros are so confronting.
Do the halfway through. So you are on trend, Jessie Stevens.
Okay, see, I've got to do something big for my milestone birthday.
Can I tell you what I'm doing for my birthday this year? I'm turning 47, so it's not an anything birthday. But my best friend and I are going up to the Gold Coast and we're recreating our experiences by going to all the worlds, because we used to go there when we were kids.
That's great
so
thing
fun
to do.
And the beauty of working at Mamamia is you get your birthday day off. I know that sucks for you guys because often a public holiday anyway, but you get your birthday day off and then you get to go and have fun, which is really cool. So yeah, I'm going to Dreamworld and Wet n Wild and stuff.
Oh, that's so fun.
Do you think that man's marriage is going to survive the one who's opted out of birthdays and his wife thinks he's planning an elaborate surprise?
That is going to be the biggest fight of their entire lives.
The advice was you need to write her a letter to warn her. And I'm like, no, she'll just think this is part of the elaborate prank. Like she's just going to go, wow, you've really lowered my expectations. It's not going to end well.
It's not going to end well.
If you or somebody you know was on Brighton Road Salvos yesterday morning and you scored an absolute bargain of a pram, Bugaboo Butterfly Travel Pram, $700. Yeah, that's actually my pram that I accidentally left there. And then they thought was stock, so they sold it for $12. I'd really like it back. I just had mum brain, was dropping off donations, juggling 2 kids, left the pram, and I've been back twice today to speak to staff and they're like, nah, sold it for $12.
There was a story that went viral over the weekend back in my hometown of Adelaide. I don't know if you caught this, but a lady went to donate some goods to her local secondhand store and did something that if you've ever given birth to a child, we are all at risk of doing. She went, dropped off the goods, all is well and good, went back to the car. She's got a toddler and a baby. She's strapping them all in. She drives away, leaves behind her $700 Bugaboo pram. And for anyone who's ever had babies, you know what a status symbol a Bugaboo pram is. Anyhow, of course, the thrift store looks at it and goes, oh, someone's just left this not where it's supposed to be. They sold it to someone for $12. And then this lady went on the internet. She's like, I'm so sorry. I left my pram behind. Someone bought it for $12. Desperately tried to get it back again. apparently the woman who bought it for $12, who thought she had the investment of the century for mums, then came back and said, yeah, look, it was me. I will give it back to you. But then apparently Bugaboo has come back to the original mum who lost her pram and said, here, have another one. The other lady can keep hers.
Okay, wait. I have a big question that I keep wondering with this story. Because if I left my pram outside a Salvo's, no one would touch it.
I was thinking the same thing. Because you know how before you donate anything to the Salvos, you meant to clean it and you meant to have it all nice and well prepped.
How beautiful must her pram have been? So
maybe she just
pram,
detailed it.
People would not
detailed it like to the
touch it.
Maybe she detailed it.
For fear of infection. Like it has mandarin pills, half a banana, dirty wipes, toys, like spills of smoothie and juice all on the white thing. Like the fact that it was in such condition that it was sellable, because op shops
maybe
do
that's
not
why
sell
it sold
anything.
for $12 though.
Yeah, that's true, that it actually had all of this other shit in it and they were like, just take it. But I reckon, I have thought this with prams because I'm in my pram era, love it. The places I leave the pram because I feel as though like it's got this
stench.
Yes, stench that's like no one will ever take it.
Protective stench.
And also like a security aura about prams.
Yes,
like I see prams
exactly.
outside of places all the time. You don't touch them. You don't steal them. They're for babies. Leave them alone.
Exactly. So I leave mine. I will go, I'm sure you're not meant to do this, but like into my local, it's not a shopping centre, but it's like a little mall thing, right? And I will leave it out the front because Luna's at the age where she likes going up and down the escalator. That's our excursion. So I will leave it sometimes for 30 minutes with just whatever in it, thinking that no one will touch it. No one ever does touch it. Like that's the rule. So if I were her, I would not be expecting anyone to sell my Bugaboo.
I also feel for this woman because we all know that to get the hand-me-downs to the Salvos, she would have been driving around with them in the back of her car for at least 6 months. We all do that where you're like, I'm definitely donating this. I'm not throwing it out, but then you don't remember. She was driving around and she thought she had the pram in the back of the car. The bit of the story, she goes home, she opens the boot, it's not there, and the bags have gone. And she's like, maybe I've had some kind of breakdown. Yeah, I really feel for her. I understand it on a deep level. And the fact that someone out there scored a dirty Bugaboo pram for $12.
Oh my God.
Applause.
Amazing.
Applause for
And
that
just finally,
person.
could we maybe normalize using prams when you no longer have a baby? Like
They're
just
very
thinking
handy.
about this, I'm like, God, I wish I still had a pram. Like the amount of stuff you can fit in it. You don't have to carry anything.
So, Claire, I have not used a plastic bag for more than 2 years.
Oh, environmental warrior.
Shark, I just have like banana, whatever I've bought just in the bottom of the pram. But the thing is, if I see you walking down the street with a pram and no baby, I just assume you dropped the baby off somewhere. I think that you can absolutely go full pram.
Your kid's 10, but
then
you're
also-
still walking around with a pram.
Yeah, but then eventually you could maybe convert into like a dog pram. Like, you know.
I see a lot of those around.
So do I.
Yeah.
If we all had a pram, we'd just be a much happier place, I think.
Where's my midlife pram? I've got a lot of shit to carry around. Have you seen my skincare bag? My God.
I want to introduce you both to an all or nothing on a man named Ned Fulmer. If that rings a bell, then you might be a Rusted-on Out Louder who remembers our show from September 2022.
Who doesn't?
Yes, exactly.
I'm sure I've
committed every single one to memory.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Every single one.
And that was 3 years ago, right? And our friend Ned came up. Let's start at the beginning. Ned was part of a group called the Try Guys. They were all over BuzzFeed and then they went to YouTube and you won't believe it, but they tried things. They tried.
Well, they like a comedy kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they started like one of their most viral videos was simulating labour pain. Or they would try being pregnant and put on like a pregnancy suit. Or
I
they
saw
would,
one where they got waxed.
Yes, exactly right. Just like try being a poker champion, all that kind of stuff. And their videos had billions of views. Like they were totally, totally viral. And there were 4 of them. And Ned Fulmer was known as the wife guy. The reason he was kind of known as that was that he had 2 little kids at the time and his wife Ariel, who appeared in a lot of the content as well. People really leaned into that.
Wife guy became kind of we've thrown it around a lot. Like I always say David Beckham's a wife guy. There are certain celebrities who are always like being really in love with their wife is part of their brand.
And that started with Ned. Ned was the
Right.
first time we heard the term
he's the
wife
OG
guy.
wife guy.
He's the OG wife guy. And look, that was until fans photographed Ned having an affair with the producer of the show.
This is one of the problems with being a wife guy,
Yeah.
is that if it turns out that you're not
You're
so
not.
great to your wife, what happened?
So the fan
I've forgotten.
was out and about, and he was like, he must have been kissing her. It was very, very obvious. But they took photos of Ned and this woman and then sent them directly to Ariel, his wife.
Directly to the wife.
Yes.
Ouch.
Outed by a fan.
And then some video photo thing went absolutely viral, and ultimately Ned was booted from the group. And this story, to give you a sense of how big it was at the time, it was parodied on Saturday Night Live. It was in newspapers. It was everywhere. It made it to us, even though we'd never heard of the Try Guys before this moment. 3 years passed. Both of them disappeared. You've not heard anything from them. It was one of the biggest cancellations ever.
So do we know, like, did they get divorced? Like, we presume that they split up?
We didn't know.
But
we
he
just didn't know.
lost his
Okay.
job, basically,
Yeah,
didn't he?
he totally lost his job.
They booted him from the crew
Yeah.
because he was bringing them into disrepute.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there had been sightings
Those were the days.
of the two sort of around where they lived, and they were like, oh, maybe they're still together, maybe they're not, we don't really know. But Ned is back. He has a podcast called Rock Bottom where he interviews people who have made big mistakes and he asks them how they came back. And the first guest, which doesn't actually quite fulfill that promise of a podcast, but anyway, his first guest is his wife, Ariel. And here's a little taste of the conversation they had.
Doesn't mean
All
that
is
you're
forgiven.
together.
And you're
No, like people ask me, like, do you forgive Ned for what he did? And I mean, the answer is no, absolutely not. How can you forgive somebody for lying to you, for cheating on you? No, no.
No,
I think I like Ariel.
I
She's-
like Ariel a lot.
She obviously has forgiven him to the point where, when I was reading a little bit about this, they talk about how they are kind of still together. Like, they're not together, but they're together. Like, as in, they're together as a family unit. They do things together as a family. They're not explicit in whether or not they've moved on or really got divorced. But clearly she wants everybody to know that she did not stick with that idiot who was so silly that he was cheating in public as a famous person.
Who was a wife guy. Exactly. Interestingly, he isn't resentful about being cancelled. He says it was justified and that he totally gets it, and that what the internet wants is a one-dimensional character, which he played into, which was this wife guy thing. And in good news, Ariel is setting up a pottery business. I hope there's a link in the show notes.
Good on you, Ariel.
And we all love that for her. Go buy a pottery.
So he's coming back and she's coming back in different ways.
Exactly.
I wonder what he's been doing for money for 3 years.
Here's my question, right? Is because there has been an enormous amount of resistance. People say, oh, interesting in the podcast, she calls it the affair, he calls it the scandal, right? There's a lot of eye rolling. 3 years is a long time.
Does he go into any detail about the affair? He said, I think he says it's
really.
someone at work, right? But he doesn't give you any context in how long was it going on.
No, and then he says something that I didn't like about how their marriage was kind of a fantasy and the dream was starting to break. I really hate it when an affair like this happens and they're kind of like, well, you know, there was a problem with the marriage. Even if that's true, just like it attempts to place blame on the other person in a way that I think is really unhelpful.
Like, life can get hard. You don't have to cheat on your partner. You can have open discussions with them and act like an adult.
And in the relationship, that's allowed.
But is there a good way to be a famous person or a public person and to come back from a cheating scandal without looking like a dick? Because I'm thinking about, I mentioned before, wife guy, trademark wife guy, David Beckham.
Yeah.
Very famously, there was a big cheating scandal with he and Posh in the noughties. Their strategy has always been, don't talk about it. Like, just don't talk about it. Just don't go there. Just don't give it oxygen. Even in the documentary, the Beckham documentary, it was kind of referenced as we went through a hard time. Some of the headlines even about that story were a bit edited. So they've never given it fuel. Now, this guy is giving it a lot of fuel in a way, but he's still kind of talking around it. As you say, Jessie, he's calling it a scandal, a problem in my marriage. He's not like, is there a way for a cheater, particularly a male cheater, although maybe we don't see female cheaters talking about it publicly, to win back a female audience, do you reckon?
So that's a good point about the female audience that I should say as well, is that 80% of the Try Guys audience was young women.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other important factor, and that I don't think his crime was infidelity. I think his crime was in being inauthentic.
Yes.
People felt as though I was sold this version of you, and now, because I'm going, it isn't. I saw someone in an article compare him to someone that was a literal criminal, and I went, no, he's not a criminal. He did something bad that a lot of people do. I mean, even the word bad, like it's very moralizing, like who are any of us to judge?
But she says she felt betrayed. So,
yeah.
So we know that there was not, we know that for her, cheating was a line. Like, we talked about this when it was the Coldplay couple. You don't always know what's going on in people's marriages. You don't always know where they're up to and whether or not they're separating or not. You don't always know, and maybe they're open, maybe they're not. But she has clearly said here, like, this devastated me and I will never forgive you.
What you said, Jessie, then is so true in that the audience that he was catering to, being majority women, are going to be a lot harder to win back than if your audience is majority men. Like Donald Trump, for example, has famously cheated on his wives and so on, and said awful things about women, and yet it doesn't really matter for him that much because the majority of his supporters are men. And I think if you are catering to women, women are so much more judgmental of you if you have hurt another woman, unless for whatever reason the internet hates that woman, which could be for various reasons. So we don't hate Ariel. We like Ariel. So that's why it's going to be really tough for him to come back unless he takes full responsibility, which it sounds like he has definitely not done.
Well, it's funny, right? Because even the name of the podcast being Rock Bottom, like if he went to the best crisis PR team in the world, which I reckon he has, and he said, what's my move? I think this is exactly what they would tell him to do. I think they'd say, lay low. Try and repair things to some extent. You don't have to get back together, but show that you're that she can tolerate you. That's a good start.
Willing enough to come on your podcast is enough.
Yes. Platform her, because the big thing is always like, well, you got your say. She didn't get hers, so give her say.
There's someone else though, isn't there, who isn't getting a say? That's the other woman in this situation, which is why these things are so thorny to discuss, because we always talk about, like, you can tell your truth, but your truth nearly always involves someone else and their truth. So maybe also, this will, wherever that woman is, the woman who was in the photos that got sent to Ariel, this will blow all this up for her as well. Like if I was, we're all have done our time as internet journalists. Whatever happened to the woman that Ned Fulmer was pashing in that restaurant? Like, it also blows that back up for her. So there's another strategy here, which is that Ned Fulmer came back to make an interesting and original podcast about something that had nothing to do with his personal life.
See, I don't think that was ever an option. I reckon that his brand now is rock bottom. Like that's his brand. And
Reformed white wife guy.
And he needs to own it and go, I'm the guy that was spat out by the internet ruthlessly. I'm going to explore that in a series with like just bearing all. And I think that we've seen a lot of men, even like the Louis C.K.'s, is like they've got to be the cancelled dude. They have to kind of wear that for a while, right?
Yeah.
Even all their specials are like, can't say anything.
100%. You're so right. But as Murphy's just said, that works okay for your brand if your brand was never squeaky clean in the first place. Like the reason why your Donald Trumps and your Charlie Sheens, you were talking about that doco the other day, like everybody knows that they are not morally, untouchable when it comes to cheating on their wives is probably good for their brand in some twisted way. They're not pretending. You hit the nail on the head before, Jessie, when you said it's about the inauthenticity, which is why some people get cancelled for things that other people can say freely. It's because they're like, well, I thought you were somebody different. I didn't think you were that person.
It's the Ellen DeGeneres, but her not being kind.
Yes, because everyone was like, but she's the nice lady who dances on the show. But it's interesting because your point about this is a great strategy to come back interviewing people at the bottom of pylons is that it depends, because he can't put himself in company of genuine victims. Do you know what I mean? Like people who have genuinely been misrepresented, bullied. Like he can't really put himself in the company of that when he was having an affair with a coworker and just was not smart enough to be private about it.
Be interesting
That's
to see
true.
who his next guest lineup is, because you're right, it would be pretty difficult for him to connect with someone who's been cancelled for other reasons. But if his list of candidates is like other men who've done things, like that might be interesting to hear how men speak to other men about these moments. But I think trotting out Ariel for Ep 1, I think I could see what they were trying to do with that. They want to blow open all the cobwebs. They don't want anyone to ask any more questions. They want that out of the way up front. Like, stop talking about it. Let's move on with this now new podcast idea. But I'm really interested to see who these next guests are going to be, because I think that will then mark what kind of guy this guy is, the reformed wife guy.
I
We'll
also
see.
think you nailed it in there's lots of enthusiasm for Ariel, because very often when a public man is cheating and then his wife comes out and says that she stood by him in whatever capacity, she usually does say that she forgave him. She usually says, I knew he wasn't being himself. I knew he was going through a hard time. I know there's a lot of love here. And so to hear Ariel say quite so clearly, no, no, about this, I think there'd probably be a lot of women cheering.
And the question is whether this relaunch is going to work. I don't, because he has every right to come back. He can
Of course
launch
he does.
whatever show he wants.
You could argue that losing your job for a private, is not really fair, but as we've already unpacked, that's largely because he was being fraudulent in his representation.
Exactly. But the question we don't have any obligation to listen or to enjoy or to consume the content. And I can't really see it being, because his role was, he described himself as a comedian before, and this all has to get very serious in order for him to wear it and try and build back his reputation. And I don't see it working.
I'm just all for Ariel leveraging this for her new pottery business.
What a great hobby.
I hope her pottery business is a lot of cups that say no at the bottom of it.
Yeah, love it.
Out Loud is a massive thank you to all of you for being with us here today, and to you, Claire Murphy, of course, for filling in for Amelia Lester, and to everybody for putting up with my slightly wobbly voice. Friends, don't forget that if you want to see our glorious faces, this is what Ned got wrong, is he didn't realise he was internet famous at a level that we know. This is why you can't scream at your daughter in public.
No.
Jessie, I can't chug passion pop
No.
at any school function.
No, the rule is, Claire, you can't cheat in public. It's got to be behind closed doors. That's the number one rule of having your face on the internet.
Look, I'm
Everyone's got
glad
their
you told me that,
phone.
because I would never have worked that out on my own without you filling me
So
in.
Thank you. If you want to be able to recognise us causing misdemeanours in public, you need to go over to YouTube. Go over to YouTube, watch
But
us
please
there.
don't judge me for my middle-aged pram, which will be in some kind of condition by the time you see it.
And we will be back in your ears tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.